Invincible. We have to talk about the elephant in the room. After 4 episodes, we're on a mid-season break. This has made a lot of people very unhappy and has even led to people criticizing some of the shortcuts being made in the animation of the show. A lot of them are levying the criticisms at the animators with zero understanding how hard or how long it actually takes to make an animated series. So those people can go pound sand. But let's talk about the break before I get into the episode itself. Do I think they should have had the break? No. I think they should have waited until they were ready to release them all uninterrupted, but this is not a long break, okay? We're getting the other half of the season in January, so you only have to wait a month. And for some of you Zoomers out there, you might not know this, but this was basically standard for watching TV back in the day. Shows went on winter break. You basically you didn't get new episodes of your shows for 3 or 4 weeks in December. So for somebody like me, who grew up watching TV in the 90s, this kind of just feels like a return to form for me. Though I will say, I would have preferred that they not have the break. I think it does kind of kill the momentum. That being said, this episode does have kind of a big climactic event that does have a logical point to give some time to wait. And the previous episode, Invincible is contacted by some aliens saying, hey, we need your help because our planet is in danger. And he goes and then finds out that his dad is running that planet. Now, I kind of am in a difficult spot when it comes to how to review this show because I have to remember that not everyone's read the comics like I have, but the comics have been followed so faithfully to this point that I know where things are going. And because of that, it's kind of hard to I can't speculate because I know where it's going to happen or where it's going. So if something happens where somebody is, oh man, I can't wait to find out what happens next. Well, I know what happens next. So all that, a lot of that has kind of been spoiled for me. So reviewing it in that regard, I have to just admit that you're probably going to miss something from me just because I know where we're going. And so I don't have that kind of anticipation of wonder what'll happen. But I can say that we are really kicking into some of the best parts of Invincible. And this episode, Nolan tells Mark, he's like, hey, I brought you here because I have deserted my post and no Viltrumite has ever done that before. So they're coming for me. I need you here so that we can take them on together. And so this episode is a big Viltrumite fight because 3 Viltrumites show up versus Mark and Nolan, and it is exactly as brutal of a fight as you would expect to see from 5 Viltrumites. Noverdux says, I think the TV made Nolan a hell of a lot better than his comic counterpart at this point. Yes, I would say Invincible, the show, is paced better than Invincible the comics. Because in Invincible the comics, Nolan kills the Guardians of the Globe, and in the very next issue, he and Mark basically have their confrontation. Whereas in this show, he did it at the start of the season, and they don't have the confrontation till the end of the season. And it's, that interplay where they actually spend more time showing you the potential conflicts that Nolan's got in terms of what he says he's here to do versus what his heart actually wants at this point. And I don't think Robert Kirkman necessarily fully pulled it off in the comics, but the ultimate goal is to kind of give Nolan a redemption arc. At some point, when you have killed as many people as Nolan has, is that appropriate? Would it be appropriate to give Kissinger, rest in piss, Kissinger, would it be appropriate to give him a redemption arc? At some point, as a leftist, I do believe in rehabilitation, but I also think that at some point, there's things that people do that are so heinous that it's no, you don't get that redemption. You had power and you used that to murder lots and lots of people. And Noverdux says there's also the part where the TV showed Nolan's time away from Earth. Yeah, and like I said, so this is a world full of bug aliens. They only live a year. Nolan has been made their emperor because they asked him to, because, Nolan lives for thousands of years. they all live 1 year. So having a leader that they know is going to be there gives them some stability. And also, turns out even though they look like, humanoid mantises, apparently they can still interbreed with the Viltrumites. So Mark has a little baby brother. And because these species only live like a year, but with half Viltrumite DNA, this baby is growing very fast. He's only a couple weeks old at this point, but he looks like he's like 2. And having read the comics, I can tell you, yes, he is in fact going to be, kind of like a speaking character very shortly. Admiral Paco says redemption at that point is, to borrow a line from National Treasure, you still go to jail for a very long time, but you feel better on the inside. Oh man, they kind of do that. I mean, I not to spoil too much for the future of this, but what you have just said feels very true to what we're going to be seeing from Nolan. Because spoilers for this episode, but this episode was a week ago, so at this point you've all seen it, or whatever. But Nolan loses this fight, and the Viltrumites take him to be judged for his desertion and to be executed. But that's not going to be right away. He's going to spend some time in jail, and we'll see what happens there. But the big thing though, the big nice cliffhanger on that is that the Viltrumites tell Mark, hey, so you are now the sole Viltrumite for Earth, and your dad deserted, but you aren't going to. Because if you don't do what we ask you to do, if you don't go to Earth and make them ready for Viltrumite conquest, we'll just obliterate it. So Mark now has to either prepare Earth for a more benevolent kind of Viltrumite empire, or risk them all just destroying the planet. So that puts him in an awkward position, I would say. But there's so much that I want to talk about because I have read the comics, but I also don't want to spoil too much, because if for people who just want to see it as the show plays out, we're in for really good things. Now, I imagine we're probably, for this season, not going to see any kind of big resolution to the Viltrumite arc, just because that's one that, that's going to be basically wrapped up by the end of the series. But I really like this show. I do think that they shouldn't have done the mid-season break, but it's not that long. You only have another month before new episodes come out. I promise you will forget about that break once it's back up and running, okay? But I really like this show. And to talk more about the people who are complaining about the animation, because some of the animation in like the big fight with the 5 Viltrumites, there are moments where they do kind of, have to, like there's bits where it's just like still drawings of some of the characters, like kind of stylistically moving across the screen, almost like you're just seeing like a comic book page visualized. Like you've probably seen some of those comic book pages where like they'll just cut out the character and kind of slide it across the background to give it a little bit more visual flair. And so they do that in this. And I did see some people complaining about that, but also like, you have no idea how hard animation is, and like how long it takes, and the kind of timelines that they're on, how many animators they have working on it. Animation's really hard. Animation is so much harder than live action. With live action, obviously, like if you're doing heavy CGI, then you need animation for that. But if you just point a camera at things, everything that you're pointing at is something that exists. In animation, everything that you see had to be created by a person. Every single asset, every can of soda, every rock, every blade of grass had to be made by a person and put on there. Things that just seem mundane to you, work had to go into like actually showing that, versus if you're filming like a sitcom set in somebody's living room, you could literally just go to somebody's living room and shoot there, and it's already all there because they're filming in the real world. Animation is so much harder than people realize. Noradex says the big fight is basically the remake of the comics. Yeah, I read through the comics right after the first season of Invincible because I loved the first season so much. I'm like, I gotta know what happens next. So it's been a couple years since I read that, but it all felt very familiar. So, oh yeah, and I don't remember the names or if they even gave them for all of the Viltrumites that show up, but the lady Viltrumite who's got a blade at the end of her braided ponytail, that was a really cool touch. I don't even remember if that was in the comics or not. It could have been. It's been a while since I read it, but like, yeah, she's just like, using her ponytail as a bladed whip. It was really cool. Anyway, it was a fun episode. It's really good. I can't wait to see what happens next. I know where we're going, and that's why I'm so excited for it. I really like this show, guys. Hey, thanks for watching. Your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific and Sundays at 2 p.m., so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons, with a very special shout out to my Whale Shark tier patron Ryan D and my Anemone friend tier patron Piftle Cakes. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.